evening everybody, honorable dignitaries, friends, and today I am here to present seminar on detection of lesion in human heart using artificial neural network. Myself Maninder Kaur from lecturer, Wright Institute of Engineering and Information Technology. Lesion is an abnormal tissue usually damaged by disease, and it is required to be detected so as to protect the surrounding tissues from further damage as well as to cure the very lesion. So this system is designed to detect the abnormality as well as to enhance the capability for accurate diagnosis using fast neural network. So the approach to detect the lesion was that the SPECT image, which is the input image, is pre-processed to extract the statistical features to give as an input to the fast neural network trained with the backpropagation algorithm, and that very output of the fast neural network are post-processed to get the output or the location of the lesion in very human heart. First, the pre-processing of the input SPECT image were there. Input SPECT image was taken and converted into grey level images, and the unwanted area was get away using by manual checking. These were the input SPECT images, and the images which were obtained after pre-processing were these images. These images, the data, the pixels of these very images were very large in number. So these pixels were required to be reduced so as to give as an input to the artificial neural network. So these pictures were pre-processed basis on the textual information. The textual information from these images were extracted using statistical features from the gray level co-occurrence matrix. These gray level co-occurrence matrix is tabulation how often the pixel combination or the combination of gray level occur in a given image. And these metrics are calculated for 4 different directions, that is 0 degree, 45 degree, 90 degree and 135 degree. And the 4 statistical features, namely entropy, inverse difference momentum, angular second momentum and correlation, were calculated from each GLCM matrix, and 16 statistical features from 4 GLCM matrix contribute the input for this very neural network. The 4 statistical features which were extracted from the image were inverse difference momentum, which is the measure of closeness of the distribution of elements of the GLCM to the GLCM diagonal. Then correlation. Correlation is the measurement of the joint probability occurrence of the specified pixel pair. And entropy, which measures the local variation, and angular second momentum, which provides the sum of skewed elements of the GLCM. This very input, the inputs which were obtained by this very textured information is given as an input to fast neural network. Fast neural network. In this fast neural network, we take the FFT of the input matrix as well as the weight matrix and multiply them in the frequency domain and convert them in the time domain using inverse Fourier transform. So the architecture which was created consisted of 16 input layer and 2 hidden layers with 20 and 10 hidden neurons in the first and second layer respectively, and the output layer consists of 5 output neurons. The first output in the neuron in the output layer consists of detection, which detects whether the lesion is present or not. If the lesion is present, then the location is given by the X start and Y start, and the distance covered by the lesion in X and Y direction is given by the X disc and Y disc. So this was the graph which was obtained after training of this very fast neural network. And the post-processing depends on the detection output. If the detection output was 1, then the post-processing was done in order to locate the location of the lesion. This algorithm was tested for 52 images, 36 were without lesion and rest were with lesion, and the detection rate was 94.2%. These were the results which were obtained after this post-processing. And this is the comparison between the fast neural network and the artificial neural network. From this very graph, it shows that for the same very image size, the number of computation required by the artificial neural network is large as compared to the fast neural network. These are few of the references. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maninder. Then next we have got is Ravikant Puja, RK Jump, Information Generation and User Requirement in India.
So my topic is little bit a generalized one as compared to electronics and something like the devices, etc. It's just what is the information generation and its uses in India. Basically, we are using day to day so many types of information in India, and but basically we are not aware what the actually happening in the how you get that information, what are the proper procedures, how you deliver that particular information. Topic is just how to generate information, a user requirement for a layman, and the layman is maybe a student, a researcher, a banker, an insurance persons, or a telecommunications, and what are the people who are who develop particular type of information for the welfare of a particular economy, for the development of banking system and the economic growth of a particular country or a state. Then when you talk about the information generation and user requirement in India, it is just like one of the vital source which play a very significant role in the scientific, social, economic as well as the cultural development of a particular institute, organization or a state. And again the important aspect which is that you have to provide the right information to the right person at the right time, in the right form, in a very precise manner. Remember the things only that is in a very precise manner. That should be a lengthy one, it will be a compact one, so that you can immediately use that information for the benefits of the whole of the society. Yeah. That the information is basically which is giving shape to your curriculum, your facts, your knowledge, your data, and the facts and figure which is available with you as a matter of the reference things. But for a common layman, there are five principles we must take into account for the useful information. The first thing is information is for the use. When you're talking about the information, it means we use the information for the general public, maybe students and some other research scholars or some professionals. Then every information has its user. When you talk about the information, there are so many types of information available. And when you talk about the information available are there, then we think every information, whether it is not used for one person, that is automatically used for the another person. And another important aspect is that the information is to save the time of the reader or maybe the user of that particular information. When you talk about the use certain data, certain knowledge, etc., it helps us to save that particular time of the things. And very important concept in the today economy, in the multimedia and the internet and the development of the technology, that is information is to save the time of the, it is a growing organism like other information or other discipline in the Indian economy. Then another concept of this, what are the basic quality one possesses to get a good information, that one is accessibility. If you go for good information, it must be accessible to each and every person in a particular domain. Then it should be comprehensive, it should be detailed one, and it's easily understood by the users in that particular context. Then it should be precise, compatibility with your requirement, very much important. When you go for some information from internet or some journals or from e-books and etc., we should be emphasized on the compatibility of that particular information, whether that is compatible with your aims, goals and objectives of your organization or not. Then timeliness of information, that you get that information, use that information at the proper time when you require that information, and so on. The clarity, flexibility. It should not be rigid one. You get some information in the shape of e-books, e-journal, etc. It should be just in your sphere, in that you should be flexible to mold the information according to your own goals and objectives. Then verifiability. The concept of verifiability is very much that you are not copying that particular information, and it must be verified in contrast to your reference to a particular journal or particular book or whatever it may be. Then free of biasness. When you are using some particular type of information, it must be free of biasness. Then quantifiable, it must be measured in some certain quantities. And the most important thing is what is the things which are helpful for the generation of that particular information. The information which is generated through different things are that it may be generated through your books, e-journal, then it will be through your internet. And who is the basic user? It may be again the bankers, organization, researcher, the student, etc. And the most important thing in information concept is that you must have to be very much helpful in the doing that information for the welfare of the people of the particular organization and the user of that things. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Any questions? Okay, then we have got Anupma Pankaj, Rashmi Agarwal, wireless technology management.
Very good evening to all of you. Since we are falling short of time, so I'll cover only some basic ideas about wireless technologies which are becoming popular nowadays. Now, this is the first slide, which is saying that if you have been in an airport, coffee shop, library or hotel recently, chances are you have been right in the middle of wireless network. You might have seen people carrying laptops. They are using internet sitting at airport or sitting in the McDonald's, and they are using internet. So how they are using it? There is no cable, there is no router, so how they are using the internet? Now, what is wireless network? Network without connecting cables that rely on radio waves for transmission of data. Now, this is possible, wireless network is possible with these two technologies. One is Wi-Fi, which is the most popular term which we hear nowadays, that stands for wireless fidelity.
Sorry.
Fidelity means you have faith. So there is a wireless network, but still you have faith that you will be having the internet connection, you will be able to use the net. The second most popular technology is WiMAX, that is worldwide interoperability for microwave access, which is not WiMAX is not implemented successfully, but the work is going on WiMAX. Now, what is Wi-Fi? How it works? We are having routers. You might have seen the systems are connected to routers through cables. But in Wi-Fi, there is a router, but the systems are not connected through cables to the router. The router is there, but there are no cables. How it is there? Then we are having the internet connection. Now, this is how it happens. A computer's wireless adapter translates data into radio signal and transmit it using an antenna. So there is a router. There is an inbuilt antenna in the router. Similarly, your laptop or your system has an adapter, that is a wireless adapter, which is being fitted into your system. Signals are received by your router, and through radio waves they are being transmitted to your laptops and your systems. Wireless router receives the signals, decodes it. It sends the information to the internet using a physical wired Ethernet connection. So your router is connected to the net through Ethernet connection, but your systems are not connected to the router. Router is sending the information to your systems through radio waves. Now, how Wi-Fi communication happens? This slide shows this. The radios used for Wi-Fi communication are very similar to the radio used for walkie-talkies, but the difference is that they transmit frequencies ranging from 2.4 gigahertz to 5 gigahertz. So the frequencies are very high, so the data transmitted is large, so you can get the information from the internet very fast. Now, what do you mean by Wi-Fi hotspot? Any connecting point for Wi-Fi. If you are entering McDonald's, you are using Wi-Fi, it means it's a Wi-Fi hotspot. You can sit in the McDonald's, you can use the laptop, and you don't need cables to connect to the internet, you just sit and access. But there is a limitation of Wi-Fi that, say they connect, the coverage area is very less for Wi-Fi, it's around 100 feet. So who will solve this problem? So WiMAX is a technology which will solve this problem. The technology of Wi-Fi and WiMAX is same, but WiMAX gives you a large coverage area, about miles, 100 miles, 30 miles. I'm skipping this part because the technology is almost same. The mode of transmission is radio wave, but the coverage area is vast as compared to Wi-Fi. So this is your WiMAX scenario. How you will implement the WiMAX technology, or how you will make use of WiMAX technology. You will buy a WiMAX enabled computer. You would receive a special encryption code that would give you access to the base station, which is giving you the internet connection. The base station would beam the data from the internet to your computer, for which you would pay a monthly fee. I think most of you are having this internet connection, you are paying some monthly fee. The cost for this service could be much lower than the current high-speed internet subscription fees, because the provider is not using the cables. It is giving you the internet connection through radio waves. So these are some security points which you can consider whenever you are using wireless networks. Since we are falling short of time, so I will not discuss the security point. So this is the conclusion, that if WiMAX is implemented successfully, we can make use of it in various fields of education and rural markets. Thanks. Any questions, please ask.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Then we have got Jyoti Srivastava, Sumita Ray Chaudhary. high speed multi-ramp digital to analog converters.
Very good evening to all of you. Today I am going to present a paper on high speed multi-ramp digital to analog converter. Now basically what is digital to analog converter? Basically digital to analog converter is the interface between the digital output of the signal processor and the analog world. Now different architectures of DAC. DAC can be classified according to the architectures R2R ladder DAC, binary weighted DAC and RAM based DAC. Coming directly to the RAM based DAC, this is the single architecture of single RAM based DAC. RAM based DAC has not been used much in the past because of its slowest speed, but it is more accurate than the two DACs. This is the architecture of the single RAM DAC. The input data is set in this n-bit digital input latch. There is n-bit comparator and n-bit counter. This is the discharge switch S2. At the start of the cycle, this discharge switch will get closed so as to discharge the capacitor fully. After the discharge phase, this clock is given to the counter and the counter starts counting. As soon as the switch S1 switch is operated by the output of the comparator, when the output of the comparator is high, the switches will get closed and the current cell will start charging the capacitor. As the comparator output will be high unless and until the counter output matches with the comparator input. As soon as it matches with the comparator input, the output of the comparator goes low and the switch will get open and the capacitor will hold the charge which corresponds to the n-bit digital input. Now basic limitation of this single RAM DAC is its speed is very slow. Suppose if we are having n-bit data for conversion, that means the counter has to count for 2 to the power 8 cycles. That means for 256 cycles. This decreases the speed of the single RAM based DAC. By changing the architecture of the single RAM based DAC, we had proposed the architecture of multi-RAM based DAC in which 4 single RAM DAC are operating in parallel. This is the block diagram of multi-RAM DAC in which for the 8-bit data we are using 2-bit counter and 2-bit comparator so that the speed of the DAC will get increased. Now basic problem in the case of MOS transistor is the charge injection and clock feedback. Charge injection problem is basically the problem which is there in the MOS transistor. When the MOS transistor is on, the gate oxide capacitance of the MOS transistor will get charged to some value. When the MOS transistor will turn off, that capacitance, that charge on the capacitance will get injected in the load capacitor, which change the output of the load capacitor. This encircled region in this graph will show the charge injection problem. To reduce the charge injection problem, we had used dummy switches. Dummy switches is used along with the main switch. Source and drain of the dummy switches get shorted, and this clock signal which we had given to the dummy switch is the complement of the clock signal which we had given to the main switch. When the transistor MOS switch is turned on, main switch is turned on, the charge sharing between these two capacitors will take place by this shorted path, and when this transistor will turned off, the charge injection problem which is taking place to the load capacitor, the charge on the gate oxide capacitance will get injected in the charge of the gate oxide capacitance of the dummy switches instead of it is injecting in the load capacitor. Now operation of multi-RAM DAC, digital input are set in the latch. At the starting, both the capacitor sampling and charging capacitor are discharged to 0. As the clock is applied, the comparator will start comparing its input with the counter output. As soon as any of them matches with the counter output, the RAM generation unit will stop, and while the other will get continued. When all the RAM generation unit will get stopped, the charge hold on the charging capacitor will be held constant, and which is sampled by the sampling capacitor. These are the control signal. At the start of the cycle, the discharge pulse is high, that means so as to discharge the capacitor fully. At the same time, counter clear signal is high, and at the same time latch clear signal is high so as to clear the latch. After that, latch set signal will be high so as to set the input data, and the comparator enable signal will be high so as to start the comparison. After some time, the sampling pulse will be high so as to sample the charge on the charging capacitor. This is the result of the multi-RAM based DAC. At the discharge phase, both the capacitor will discharge to 0. After that, charging capacitor will start charging while the sampling capacitor will hold the 0 value. When the sampling switch will turn on, both the capacitor will share the charge, and both the capacitor will have the half of the charge because both of them are of the same value. The result of the multi-RAM DAC is verified by the dual RAM DAC, in which we had reduced the parallelism. We can see that time taken by the dual ramp DAC is more than the time taken by the multi-ramp DAC. The proposed architecture of multi-ramp DAC gives a very high speed, it takes very least area and it consumes very least power, but its resolution is limited to only 8 bit. Any questions?
Then we got a Hemant Shukla and V. Rehani, FPGA implementation of ZX and J1X using Taylor series method.
Good evening everybody, I am Hemant Shukla, pursuing my master's degree in electronics from Punjab Engineering College. This is FPGA implementation of J0X and J1X using Taylor series method. J0X and J1X are the first order Bessel's equation. This is the classification of VLSI circuit. Any monolithic highly integrated circuits can be divided into two-part standard circuit, custom circuits. I have designed it on FPGA and I consider FPGA as a part of ASIC design. The motivation of the work is Bessel's function is important in antenna design, electromagnetic field theory, cylindrical boundary value problems, physics, optics, thermodynamics, and almost in every area of physics and electronics. Current, potential, temperature distribution problems, especially in the cylindrical boundaries, are dealt with Bessel function. Second thing is Taylor's expansion. We have Taylor's expansion for certain problems, and I have implemented this Taylor's expansion on this FPGA. Then floating point architecture on FPGA, it was not possible before intensive hardware, intensive multiplier block and all those things, especially after Spartan 3 and Vertex 4, the Vertex kits. It was not possible to implement that much amount of architecture on FPGA. Now, but it is important nowadays that floating point architecture are important in molecular dynamics, nuclear body problem, differential equations, linear systems, and financial engineering. Floating point arithmetic is 1 bit, this is IEEE 754 standard. There's 32 bits, 1 bit for most significant bit for sign bit, there's 8 bits for exponent, that is biased exponent, and there's 23 bits for fraction. This is the format for that. And there's some special cases in IEEE 754 format, and these are some invalid operations. Those are very simple and the same operations that we applied in maths.
Okay.
This is the Taylor's expansion. Taylor's expansion are applicable only when we are interested in the solution of the functions which are very complicated, and we don't want the solution at every point, but we want the solution at some specific point, say x equals to 0. This is the Taylor's expansion. This is Bessel's equation and the part of this. This is the multiplier I have designed. These are the results for the multiplier. This is the floating point adder I have designed. This was using 3 align, barrel, and behavior modeling. I have designed all the 3 types and see the results there. Then these are the types of adder which I have used. These are the results of the adder. This is the Horner algorithm I have implemented in that. I have used Horner algorithm to reduce the number of multiplier and adders. This is the target kit on which I am using, and this Xilinx 9.1 I tool I have used. This is the RTL logic block diagram. These are the results I have obtained for that, and it's pretty accurate, but the limitations for this is, these are the frequency and output delay. But the limitation is, the Taylor's expansion is limited, this input range is limited to the Taylor's expansion. The precision is achieved as per IEEE 754 standard. This is a part of SFU module which I am working on in my dissertation work, and there can be a generalized algorithm, there can be a developed generalized algorithm on which we can get a variety of input, a large range of input. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then we have got Mr. A.G. Bade, e-learning advances in cyberspace for effective distance education.
Good afternoon, respected eyes and my dear friends. Myself is Anil Badade. I am from Government Polytechnic, Latur, Maharashtra State. My today's topic is e-learning, advances in cyberspace for effective distance learning. Now, many of times you have come across the term the e-learning. So, what is the definition of the e-learning? In many ways, this e-learning can be expressed as a general term which allows the delivery of knowledge and information to learners at a required pace. By other way, we can say that it's a computer-enhanced learning system and applicable to all types of electronic-based learning. Moreover, we can say that e-learning is achieved at any times, anywhere, without any geographical barriers. Now, why e-learning is required? Say, in India, with more than 100 crore population, quality of education is poor due to the limited available resources. For example, there is a shortage of good teachers in various areas. We have a recorded classroom of best teacher, and this will affect a great impact on the quality of education, thereby benefiting the whole population, and it removes the problem of no faculty available. Moreover, a high quality study material is available to students with minimum cost. That's why we need e-learning. Apart from this thing, again there are certain more reasons that why we require e-learning. Now, what are the technologies used in e-learning? Number of technologies are used to implement the e-learning. Some of the technologies are listed here. E-learning basically depends upon the internet accessing learning material and the interacting with the experts and fellow learners. So various techniques which are used in learning, such as teleconferencing, then we have video conferencing. Teleconferencing, as we know, it's sending the signal over some telecommunication system such as telephone link. Video conferencing, video and audio signals can be transmitted simultaneously. We have a collaborative software which is used for the number of people simultaneously. Then we have multimedia CD-ROM. Then we have most popular email, multimedia CD-ROM, blogs, wikis, website, web-based teaching material, educational animation, etc. These are the various techniques. Now, what are the types of e-learning? There are two kinds of e-learning. E-learning 2.0, which refers to the social software such as blogs and wikis. There are certain features of this e-learning. The second type of e-learning is a very important type of e-learning, is a blended e-learning, which is a combination of multiple approaches of learning. It is a combination of online and face-to-face education having its own merits. Lecture uses multimedia teaching objects to improve his or her teaching efficiency. So, let us have the advantage of the e-learning: cost effectiveness of education, sharing information of resources, facility of interaction, areas of application, primary and secondary education, higher education, corporate training education. We can train to the government employees as well as education for the general purpose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, then we have got Mr. G. Prakash Babu in SS Patnaik, capacity enhancement of a MIMO channel using cooperative diversity.
Dignitaries on the dais and delegates and my dear friends. Today I am presenting my paper on capacity enhancement of a MIMO channel using cooperative diversity. Myself, G. Prakash Babu, I am doing this work under the guidance of Dr. SS Patnaik and Mrs. Swapna Devi Madam, NITTR Chandigarh. Motivation to my work is high voice quality, high data rate, low complexity at the mobile unit. These are the requirements for the future generation mobile systems. And one more thing is, fading is also a problem in wireless communication channel. So it is degrading the system performance in terms of the SNR and reliability. So that's why I have taken this problem in my thesis work. If you see in the wireless channel, so wireless, each mobile user will send his information directly to the base station, and the same information is to be received by the other user, which is possible in present communication channel. But it is a disadvantage in present 2G communication system. Instead of this disadvantage can be converted into advantage by using a cooperative diversity technique. What is a cooperative diversity? Cooperative diversity means by sharing the resources of the other mobile users, we will be able to form the transmit diversity, or we will be able to form the virtual antenna array, which will give the diversity. For relaying any information from the from the cooperative diversity, we are having amplify and forward method, and second one is a decode and forward method. These two have some disadvantages. So that's why we will go for the coded cooperation relaying protocol. In this coded cooperation relaying protocol, we will use every frame can be divided into two parts. One is the one frame is used for transmitting the user one. Second frame is used for the transmitting the relayed information. So this is, you can see here. This is the system model that I have taken. So first is the source. He will transmit his information. The second one relay section. Relay will relay the information. In this model, I have chosen the coded cooperation relaying protocol for relaying the information to the base station. So these are the results so far we have so far achieved. So the first graph will show the established results. Second one is the simulated results. So by comparing the first graph and second graph, I can say my result is better than the established result. So thank you, sir.
Any question? Okay, thank you. Then we have got Vipul Sharma, A.K. Tyagi, T.K. George and N.K. Agarwal.
A very good evening to all of you. Myself Vipul Sharma, lecturer, Gurukul Kamri University, Haridwar. My presentation topic is microwave devices simulation using neural networks. The outlines are, these are the outlines. Let's go to introduction. Neural networks are prominently being used in various microwave applications, but most of the applications are dedicated to passive microwave elements or devices, and the applications dedicated to active microwave devices are comparatively less. In present work, we have used ANN to make a computer program for simulation of characteristics of gun diode. Yeah, neural network principles. Much has been discussed on neural networks, so I will just say that we have used the transfer function as a sigmoidal function in this block diagram of neuron. Again, input layer, hidden layer, output layer, and we have used backpropagation algorithm in which output is compared with the desired output pattern, and error is used for the adjustment of the weights to optimize to adjustment of the weights to get the desired output up to the error minimum error which we can tolerate. Specification of the neuron model that we used is, we used 3-layer 1-10-1 neuron model. The learning rate was 0.8. 26 number of patterns were taken for training of the network, and 50 patterns were used for testing. Number of iterations were 31444, and the weight adaptation formula was this one for output layer and this one for the hidden layer. Let's come to the results. Normalized current voltage characteristics of gun diode DC1276 was sampled at 50 points, and out of this 26 patterns were used for training of the network, and rest 24 were used for the testing of the network. And the results are these. We can see that the results are, ANN results are these dotted black lines, and we can see that they are quite closer to the experimental values, especially in the negative resistance region, which is the most usable region in microwave applications. This is the error performance curve. In the negative resistance region, we are getting the error of 0.004. Conclusion. The paper demonstrates the validity of feed-forward neural network for the estimation of current voltage characteristics of gun diode. Then the network estimates the output for the known values of bias voltage. It can be observed from the curve that ANN models gives excellent performance in the negative resistance region. We use C++ as platform to develop ANN model and MATLAB to plot the results. After large number of training iterations, estimator's accuracy was found to be excellent. ANN applications was simple, inexpensive and more accurate. This kind of models can be used as CAD tool for devices whose complete physics is yet to be developed, but experimental data is available.